can't believe you all said my last name so beautifully. First of all, I was not expecting that. It's the number one thing that nobody gets right. It has a whole bunch of letters in it that are really not how you say it, and it's kind of like lasagna. So I always like to say it really is just Roman, yo-lo, like you only live once. So I think I got the name I was supposed to get way before I ever knew that I needed it. Sitting in a conference just like this one 5 years ago, I was a mess. I had no coaching company, I was struggling with depression, and I was $1 million in debt. My husband was so torn up about our personal life circumstances and how hard we had worked to sink into a hole of what we really didn't want, that I was terrified to leave the house most days. I was worried that if I returned, and I say if because some days I wanted to run away, that if I returned, he wouldn't be there. And not because he left and it was too much for him, but because he would actually choose to take himself out of this life experience with me. The thing was, people had no idea. And all they knew of me was that I was a successful real estate broker on the outside. I was hustling every day. I was everywhere doing everything that I needed to do. I was making money, but I hated every moment of it. I was making money for all the wrong reasons. We had this big, beautiful house that dreams were made of that I thought was the thing that I needed to feel like I had made it. But instead, it sucked the life out of not only myself, but my partner in life, my soulmate. And he kept going as best he could, but his body was breaking down, and nobody knew what was wrong or going on with him. I didn't tell anybody that I was driving home from client appointments and crying in my car all the way home. I could barely look at myself in the mirror at that point in my life. But on the outside, I was fantastic. I would show up with a smile on my face. I would pretend everything was perfect in my life. My hair used to be really tight and pulled back then. I used to wear only black, never ever in a dress, and every layer that I could find to try and hide what I didn't even know I was trying to hide. Me, at the core of it. So 5 years ago, something happened that, when I look back now, was an incredible miracle. A very simple moment where I couldn't choose to get out of going to a conference. I had tried for the last 10 years of my career to get out of going out of every single networking event that I was invited to. I was the queen of excuses. I'm too busy. Who's going to take care of my clients? I have a big, beautiful home to take care of. Who's going to do that? The truth was, I had so much social anxiety that I couldn't even sit in a room like this. Not be on stage, sit in a room like this. I was so worried that I would be discovered for the fraud that I thought that I was. On paper, I made 6 figures, I had a big home, I had a beautiful husband, and I say beautiful because he's Italian, it's where I get my last name from, and oh my goodness, this man, if he's watching ever, which he never watches any of my things, this is the one to watch. But he was waiting for me at home in depression. And the more and more I lived that life and pretended everything was fine, the more the universe said to me, this is not what we're doing here, girl. And I started to have a systematic breakdown to every goal I was trying to achieve. You want a big house? Okay, you can have it, but that's not really where your soul is leading you in this lifetime to experience. So have it for a moment, but it's not going to feel so good. Make the money, but in the job that wasn't really what you were supposed to be doing. And I know that you're trying to hear us, but we're going to keep coming back with problem after problem after problem until you listen. So that conference was all expenses paid in Niagara Falls, 3-day event for top producers. The one place where I felt like the biggest idiot, because I thought everybody there in that room was on this big pedestal. They were perfect and amazing and had this beautiful life, whereas really I was sitting in the room with them and was exactly the same. So what was actually different? Why was I a fraud? It turns out that my subconscious mind had been trying to get my attention to see that my social anxiety was actually because I was doing the thing that wasn't my purpose in life. there was elements of it that I encompass within the work that I do today, the business savvy part of who I am, but it didn't hold the magic. So I found myself at that event talking to a group of trainers, and I had tried to get out of the big room where everything was going on, and I snuck out to a breakout session. And in that breakout session with, might I add, the amazing Avalon Empowerment trainers who are sponsors here today, they don't know I'm gonna say this right now, this is just truth, they changed my lives. Because in that breakout session, I learned that what was going on at the core of me was trying to surface for a reason. And I started my journey in becoming an NLP practitioner. I thought I could logically figure out how to communicate better, because that was my problem, apparently, communicating. It wasn't the problem, but it led me one step to the next to where I am today. And in that big, beautiful home, as I went home, sitting there one night, my husband upstairs, still having the problems that we're having, my life hadn't changed yet as I had done all of my practitioner trainings. I felt like I knew what the problems were, but I still was kind of stuck in a lot of my circumstances. There was something that was missing. So one night I found myself quietly sneaking out one of the side doors and walking out into the middle of the forest. We had this waterfront property that there was nobody around for miles. And I would stare up into the sky, just thinking, I'm just gonna, take a moment here for me. But in those moments, the moon appeared for me first. And it must have been a full moon, thinking back, why I just noticed the brilliance of this thing in the sky for me. And in the moment where I actually truly made connection to this gorgeous thing in the sky, I broke down. I cried to her like I had never cried to anybody else. I stopped pretending that I had everything together. In truth, I thought nobody was listening. I thought, I can make a fool out of myself for a minute here and let go of all of the tears I had pretending that I didn't have inside of me. Because she, as I like to call her, was the only one who didn't ask anything of me. It was the only presence in my life that didn't require me to work harder, to do something else, to show up, to keep it together, to be the one that was the rock in the situation. She just let me be. So I found myself out there with her most nights, and I would notice her sort of changing and shifting, and some nights she didn't look the same, but she was still always there, waiting for me. And I found myself more and more drawn into, what are these cycles? What is it that's happening here with this moon? Why am I so obsessed with pouring my heart out to her? And it turns out that there are some incredible phases that this big, beautiful thing in the sky goes through each and every month. And there's this incredible influence on our energy as we shift through these phases ourselves. So the one thing I learned in standing out there with the moon was the thing that I hadn't yet addressed was not the logical side of everything I needed to learn about myself. It was my energy. It was this elephant in the room that I took with me that never seemed to change until I realized it wasn't about pretending to be something that I'm not, learning another skill. It was more about understanding how I was showing up and what I was doing in certain times. So I started going to full moon meditations at first, and I was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but I'm really liking this, we're sitting there, and then I just got so deep into the moment of meditation one day that I realized, this is my jam. Like, whatever this moon thing is, this has been calling me my entire life. This is the missing piece. So now, I literally live my life by moon phases. There's 4 primary phases that I use to allow myself to open up to new experiences, to follow my calling, to allow myself to take calculated risks, and to also be able to tell what's going to happen at the end of those calculated risks. It's the woo and wooing all of my future business that people don't realize is actually not that woo after all. So the 4 steps you can absolutely use in your life and business. And I'll tell you a secret today that we're actually sitting in an incredible energy right now of adjustments. So sometimes feedback is the one thing we need most that we really don't want to listen to. I know for myself, I had been getting feedback for years that said, hey, it's time to make a difference here, a change in your life. It's time to do something else, but I didn't listen. So if you're able to actually focus on, for a very short time in your life, a couple of days, maybe up to a week, realizing this particular timing right now actually supports me in taking calculated decisions on what I need to change in my life, in my business, and looking at what it is that I need to actually do to move me into a new phase. Because a cool thing happens in about a week from now, where we actually set this beautiful foundation for magic in all of our lives. And this will happen for you too. That if you look at where are you getting these nudges to make some adjustments in your life, you're getting some amazing tools and resources today to take advantage of. When you start implementing and integrating that, what's going to happen next week is all of a sudden, you're going to start getting these creative ideas. And you just got this beautiful array before me here with Darius, who showed how to really capture that creativity. Next week is all about the creativity. When you're able to tap into your sense of self, what's important to you, and how you feel in that creative zone, the next week after that, we shift phases again. You can use this beautiful moon as your guide because she's actually a picture in the sky that's like a clock that turns on these natural cycles and constantly moves us through this flow. And that week after is all about taking the action on the thing that you've been crafting and creating. Now, if you can focus on only that for a week instead of all the overwhelming things in life, I'm going to take action on the thing that's really close to my heart that popped up from last week that I'm creative about. All of a sudden, it becomes easier to do what you need to do. The next week after that, remember how I said, you'll know exactly what's going to come next? Like no other thing you've ever seen in terms of miracles, all of a sudden, you will get information the following week about what is getting in the way. You showed up, you took action. Most people, if you've got a heartbeat, will have something that makes them feel a certain way about the action that they've taken. So use that time period in that week after as the full moon phase to realize what is coming up to the surface, your climax of energy that's allowing for you to release what's getting in the way. Because I promise you, opportunities will show up energetically for you here and there to move through these cycles, to allow yourself to achieve the thing that you want with grace and ease, to actually achieve the passion in your heart before the money, and move through the blocks that you didn't realize sometimes were there by tapping into that subconscious information through these phases. So I've used this to write best-selling books, create coaching programs, and most importantly, create transformation in my own life so that I no longer suffer with social anxiety. I can't say that I never get nervous, right? You all are beautiful and amazing out there, and if I didn't tell you that I was not nervous, I never get nervous, I have no anxiety, then that would be a lie, and that's not authentic or what anybody needs to hear. But allowing myself to show up through those feelings makes the difference every day. So allow yourself to do the thing you didn't realize you could do. Where is your heart pulling you to? And let go of the things that you didn't realize were in the way. Listen to that feedback this week, and come and find me afterwards because I have a lot more magic for you as well.